working under an editor, she said the most difficult person that she has ever worked with and the rudest person that she had ever worked with was Blake Lively, who got the cover of Glamour at some time when I was working at Glamour magazine.
People care so much more about your personal life than they do your work, and if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you.
For years, the name Blake Lively shimmered with an almost ethereal glow in the firmament of Hollywood. She was more than just a celebrity, she was an archetype, the embodiment of the modern American dream as reimagined through the lens of celebrity culture. Her image was meticulously crafted, a symphony of sun-kissed Californian radiance, effortless elegance, and a seemingly genuine down-to-earth charm that resonated deeply with a global audience. From her breakthrough as the queen bee of the Upper East Side and Gossip Girl to her ascension as a bona fide A-list movie star, gracing the covers of Vogue and captivating audiences in blockbuster films, Lively cultivated a persona that was both aspirational and accessible. She was the celebrity you felt you could almost know, the star who seemed to bridge the chasm between the gilded world of Hollywood and the everyday realities of her fans. Brands clamored for her endorsement, filmmakers sought her star power, and the media consistently painted a portrait of a woman who had seemingly mastered the art of fame, effortlessly balancing professional success with a picture-perfect personal life. But behind the dazzling smile, beneath the carefully curated social media feeds and the polished red carpet appearances, a different narrative was quietly taking shape, like hairline fractures spider-webbing across a flawless facade. Whispers, initially faint and easily dismissed, began to circulate within the industry, carried on the hushed tones of hushed conversations and anonymous emails. These whispers hinted at a growing dissonance, a subtle but persistent discord between the meticulously crafted public image and a more complex, less flattering private reality. What if the Blake Lively we had all come to admire, the paragon of Hollywood grace and charm, was not quite who she seemed? What if the carefully constructed illusion was beginning to fray, revealing a more intricate, more calculating, and ultimately far more unsettling truth beneath the surface? Prepare to have your long-held perceptions of Hollywood's golden girl irrevocably shattered as we embark on a deep dive into the untold story of Blake Lively's recent controversies, a dramatic and deeply revealing unraveling that exposes a stunning power play, a hidden struggle for control, and the shocking price of maintaining a flawless image in the unforgiving glare of the Hollywood spotlight.
I mean, honestly, the way that I get into a character is through their style. So it was more about who Lily is that was so fascinating to me.
The project that would inadvertently become the crucible for this dramatic unveiling was the highly anticipated cinematic adaptation of Colleen Hoover's deeply emotional and phenomenally successful novel, It Ends With Us, a global literary sensation resonating with millions of readers through its raw and honest exploration of love, loss, and the cyclical nature of abuse. The book was a prime candidate for a big screen adaptation when Blake Lively was announced as the lead, embodying the complex and resilient character of Lily Bloom, alongside Justin Baldoni, slated to not only star as the enigmatic Ryle Kincaid, but also to helm the project as director and co-writer. The announcement was met with a surge of ecstatic anticipation from fans worldwide. On the surface, it appeared to be a perfect alignment of talent and vision, a dream collaboration poised to bring Hoover's poignant narrative to life with authenticity and emotional depth. Lively, the established A-list luminary, bringing her considerable star power and fan base to the project, and Baldoni, already respected for his sensitive storytelling and genuine commitment to socially conscious filmmaking, seemed like ideal partners to navigate the delicate nuances of the source material. Early promotional materials and carefully orchestrated press releases painted a picture of idyllic creative synergy, emphasizing their shared passion for the novel and their mutual dedication to honoring Hoover's deeply personal story. They spoke of a collaborative process, a unified vision, and a shared commitment to crafting a film that would resonate with audiences on an emotional and intellectual level. However, this meticulously constructed facade of harmonious collaboration began to exhibit subtle cracks almost from the moment cameras began to roll. Beneath the surface of carefully curated on-set photos and effusive social media posts, a different reality was beginning to emerge, whispered in hushed tones amongst the crew and hinted at in fleeting, almost imperceptible moments of tension observed by those closest to the production. Rumors, initially faint and easily dismissed as typical on-set anxiety, anxieties began to solidify into more persistent whispers, centering specifically around Blake Lively's growing unease and alleged dissatisfaction with Justin Baldoni's multifaceted role. The very structure that had initially been presented as a strength, Baldoni's deep and comprehensive involvement in every aspect of the film, purportedly became the primary source of friction, the epicenter of a burgeoning onset Cold War. Sources suggested that Lively felt increasingly marginalized, perceiving Baldoni's triple hyphenate role as director, writer, and lead actor as granting him an undue and disproportionate level of creative control, effectively diminishing her own influence and artistic agency within the project. While the public was presented with carefully crafted images of on-set camaraderie and mutual respect, behind the scenes, a silent power struggle was allegedly brewing, a subtle but relentless battle for dominance over the film's creative direction and narrative interpretation, casting a long and ominous shadow over the seemingly utopian production environment. The initial promise of a dream collaboration was subtly morphing into something far more complex and potentially volatile, laying the groundwork for the dramatic unraveling that was yet to come.
That ended up actually getting picked up and doing very well, and I was one of 2 people maybe, and then I get a call from my managers and my agent. They were both on the line, which means it's something serious.
Right.
Either you got the job or there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And they said, so you were the choice, but the network said that your eyebrows would be too distracting.
Oh. What?
Oh no.
And then they went like, so what can we do about your eyebrows?
As filming progressed, the subtle undercurrents of tension on the set of It Ends With Us intensified, escalating from hushed whispers and veiled anxieties into more concrete and alarming accusations. Blake Lively, according to multiple sources within the production, became increasingly convinced that Justin Baldoni was not merely asserting his directorial vision, but actively working to undermine her position and sabotage her influence on the film. This alleged perception morphed into a more serious conviction that Baldoni was engaging in a deliberate and calculated smear campaign, orchestrating negative press leaks and planting damaging stories in tabloid outlets with the explicit intention of tarnishing her carefully cultivated reputation and seizing complete control of the public narrative surrounding the film. She reportedly believed that Baldoni, envious of her star power and frustrated by her attempts to assert creative input, was resorting to underhanded tactics, leveraging industry connections and media manipulation to erode her credibility and isolate her within the production. In the notoriously cutthroat and image-obsessed world of Hollywood, where strategic leaks, whisper campaigns, and carefully crafted narratives are frequently employed as weapons in power struggles and public relations battles, Lively's accusations initially resonated with a segment of the public, particularly those already predisposed to narratives of gender inequality and female victimhood within the entertainment industry. Hollywood has a well-documented history of unequal power dynamics, and many were quick to interpret Lively's claims through this familiar lens, casting her as a female star courageously battling against a powerful male director perceived as threatened by her influence and determined to silence her voice. Initial public sentiment, particularly within online communities and social media platforms, leaned heavily towards empathy and support for Lively, with many readily embracing the narrative of a woman being unfairly targeted and undermined by a male counterpart. The story of a female star potentially facing sabotage and smear tactics resonated deeply, playing into existing anxieties and narratives about gender bias and power imbalances in Hollywood, garnering her a significant wave of initial sympathy and online support. However, this seemingly unwavering tide of public support was about to encounter a formidable obstacle, as the meticulously constructed narrative of victimhood began to show significant cracks, threatened by the emergence of counter-evidence and a more nuanced, ultimately more damning perspective on the unfolding events. The initial wave of sympathy for Blake began to recede, slowly but steadily, as a more complex and unsettling truth began to seep into the public consciousness, painting a far less straightforward picture of the dynamics at play and suggesting that the power struggle was far more intricate, far more multifaceted, and far less easily categorized as a simple case of gendered bias, and that Lively's own role in the unfolding drama was far from that of a passive, defenseless victim. The shifting sands of public opinion were about to reveal a far more turbulent and treacherous landscape than anyone had initially anticipated. The pivotal moment, the catastrophic turning point that irrevocably altered the trajectory of the narrative and shifted the balance of public perception, arrived in the form of a deluge of leaked text messages. These were not vague allegations or anonymous accusations whispered in the shadows. These were alleged direct communications purportedly exchanged between Blake Lively and various members of the production team on It Ends With Us, offering an unprecedented and disturbingly intimate glimpse behind the carefully guarded walls of her public persona. The raw, unfiltered content of these messages, if proven authentic, painted a starkly contrasting picture, a jarringly dissonant image that directly contradicted the narrative of victimhood and sabotage that Lively had allegedly been cultivating. Instead of portraying a woman struggling against unfair treatment and malicious intent, the text depicted Lively as a figure actively attempting to exert an almost autocratic level of control over virtually every aspect of the film's production, from the minutiae of on-set decisions to the overarching direction of the narrative and the carefully managed dissemination of information to the public. She reportedly invoked the immense influence of her husband, Ryan Reynolds, a Hollywood powerhouse in his own right, and other unnamed but clearly powerful figures within the industry, explicitly and repeatedly referring to them as her dragons, a chillingly evocative metaphor implying that their considerable clout and retaliatory power would be unleashed upon anyone who dared to challenge or obstruct her will. The leaked messages suggested a pattern of demanding, often imperious behavior, with Lively allegedly attempting to dictate not only creative choices on set, but also wielding her influence to manipulate post-production editing decisions, meticulously craft marketing strategies, and even micromanage the intricacies of press coverage, seeking to control every facet of the film's public presentation and her own carefully constructed image within it. Her concerns, as laid bare in these leaked exchanges, appeared to extend far beyond the realm of mere creative input or artistic collaboration. They seem to be deeply rooted in a relentless, almost obsessive desire for absolute and unchallenged control, a determination to shape the entire narrative of the film, and most crucially, her own meticulously curated public image within that narrative, to an extent that bordered on the dictatorial. The sudden and unauthorized release of these text messages acted as a devastating deluge, a torrent of damning evidence that washed away the carefully constructed facade of victimhood, exposing what appeared to be a calculated and ruthless power play, a deliberate and potentially manipulative attempt to bend the entire production to her will and maintain absolute, unwavering control over her public perception, regardless of the cost. The meticulously crafted image of the approachable, charming star, the beloved Hollywood icon, began to fracture and crumble under the weight of this damning evidence, replaced by a far more unsettling and complex portrait of a powerful figure willing to leverage her influence, her connections, and potentially even manipulative tactics to achieve her desired outcome, raising profound and disturbing questions about the true nature of her persona and the lengths to which she was willing to go to maintain her carefully constructed illusion of Hollywood perfection.
I mean, I internalized that as opportunity. Like, we had such a responsibility to this audience to deliver something and to have the opportunity to deliver something for a passionate group of people.
Yes.
As someone who is so deeply passionate myself, I was so excited about that. I would so much rather have that than people who are indifferent.
Blase.
But even the explosive revelations contained within the leaked text message deluge were merely a dramatic prelude to the truly seismic event that sent shockwaves through the foundations of Hollywood and irrevocably solidified the shift in public perception. The unprecedented and almost unthinkable actions of Blake Lively's long-term attorney. This was not just any legal representative. This was a legal luminary, a titan of the Hollywood legal landscape, a seasoned professional renowned for representing the industry's most elite clientele in the most delicate, high-stakes, and often scandal-ridden cases, a figure deeply entrenched within the inner sanctums of Hollywood power and influence. This attorney, after years of representing Lively, navigating countless professional and personal legal matters with unwavering discretion and fierce client loyalty, made the stunning and almost heretical decision to sever all ties with her as a client. The act itself was an earthquake, sending tremors of disbelief and speculation throughout the industry. But what what followed defied all established norms, shattered all unwritten rules of attorney-client confidentiality, and amplified the scandal to a level previously unimaginable. Instead of the customary quiet, discreet withdrawal, the kind of hushed departure that is typical even in the most acrimonious client-attorney splits, this legal heavyweight issued a public statement, not a vague, carefully worded press release designed to minimize damage and maintain professional decorum, but a direct, unambiguous, and devastatingly impactful declaration explicitly expressing profound and deeply unsettling concerns about Blake Lively's fundamental credibility. The statement revealed, in stark and carefully chosen language, that the attorney and their legal team had undertaken an exhaustive and meticulous review of all available digital records, testimonies from multiple sources, and a comprehensive body of evidence pertaining to the unfolding controversy surrounding It Ends With Us. The conclusion, as articulated in the attorney's carefully crafted but nonetheless devastatingly critical public pronouncement, was unequivocal. They could no longer, in good conscience, ethically or professionally, continue to represent Blake Lively, as her core assertions, her central narrative, were demonstrably, and in their expert legal opinion, fundamentally inconsistent with verifiable facts and the overwhelming weight of the evidence. In the fiercely protective, intensely secretive, and fiercely client-loyal world of Hollywood law, where attorneys are expected to defend their clients with unwavering tenacity, even in the face of damning evidence or questionable behavior, this public denouncement was not just an earthquake. It was a cataclysmic event, a legal apocalypse. It shattered all precedents, violated all unspoken codes of conduct, and signaled to the entire industry and the world at large that something was profoundly, irreparably, and perhaps unforgivably broken within Blake Lively's narrative. The lawyer's unprecedented statement functioned as an unofficial but devastatingly credible indictment, a public legal betrayal of epic proportions that spoke volumes, amplified the scandal exponentially, and cemented the growing consensus that the truth behind the Blake Lively image was not only far more complex and troubling than initially suspected, but potentially indicative of a deeper, more systemic issue within the carefully constructed and often illusory world of Hollywood fame. The spotlight, already intensely focused on Lively, now intensified to an almost unbearable, blinding glare as Hollywood, the media, and the public alike collectively reeled from the shockwaves of this unprecedented legal condemnation, grappling with the profound implications of this extraordinary and deeply damaging betrayal. The very foundations of Blake Lively's carefully constructed Hollywood edifice began to tremble, threatening to collapse entirely under the weight of this devastating legal earthquake.
And being frank, if it were not for women giving me direct feedback in my own personal life and being a man who was willing to at least listen to them, there's no chance that I would be having this conversation. So the message, to answer your question, the message is very simple. As men, we need to embrace all of the parts of us that make us human. That's it.
It is.
It's
And
very simple.
The legal earthquake triggered a catastrophic cascade of fallout for Blake Lively, initiating a rapid and devastating reassessment of her standing not only within the rarefied circles of Hollywood power, but also within the wider public consciousness. The initial, albeit fleeting, wave of fervent fan support, fueled by emotionally charged narratives of female victimhood and perceived gender bias, began to rapidly dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning tide of disillusionment, skepticism, and even outright betrayal. Fans who had once rallied fiercely to her defense, passionately echoing her narrative and dismissing any dissenting voices, now openly questioned their own judgment, grappling with the unsettling realization that they might have been manipulated, that the carefully crafted image they had so readily embraced and defended was, in fact, a meticulously constructed illusion, a Potemkin village of Hollywood charm concealing a far more complex and potentially troubling reality. Within the hyper-competitive and notoriously unforgiving landscape of the entertainment industry, the repercussions were swift, brutal, and potentially career-ending. Projects that had been in various stages of development, with Lively strategically positioned as a lead or a key creative force, were abruptly and unceremoniously placed on indefinite hold, effectively frozen in development limbo. Studios and production companies, once fiercely vying for her star power and box office draw, suddenly became demonstrably hesitant, even overtly wary, of any future association with her, acutely aware of the the potentially catastrophic reputational damage and the looming specter of on-set disruptions and legal entanglements now inextricably linked to her name. Anecdotal accounts, previously confined to hushed whispers and private industry circles, began to surface with increasing frequency and chilling detail, emanating from costume designers, makeup artists, production assistants, and even executive producers who had worked with Lively on past projects. These accounts, while varying in specifics, coalesced into a disturbingly consistent pattern, painting a portrait of a star exhibiting demanding, entitled, and at times even allegedly manipulative behavior on set, perceived slights and disagreements that had previously been dismissed or minimized as typical Hollywood drama now being reevaluated and amplified in the harsh light of the unfolding controversy, revealing a pattern of behavior that was far more troubling and deeply ingrained than previously acknowledged. Conversely, Justin Baldoni, who had initially found himself on the defensive weathering accusations of orchestrating a smear campaign and unfairly targeting Lively, experienced a dramatic and almost paradoxical surge in public and industry support. His measured, transparent, and consistently calm response to the escalating crisis, coupled with the devastatingly credible lawyer's statement and the corroborating crew accounts, solidified his reputation as a principled and reasonable figure within the industry. He continued to publicly emphasize the paramount importance of honesty, open communication, and fostering a respectful and collaborative on-set environment, implicitly and subtly contrasting his own approach with the increasingly negative and damaging narrative swirling around Lively's alleged behavior. As the storm of controversy raged, a growing chorus of voices, previously hesitant to speak out for fear of professional repercussions or industry backlash, began to emerge from the film's crew, production team members, and even former collaborators, adding their own accounts to the growing mountain of evidence that corroborated Baldoni's version of events and offered a consistently unflattering and increasingly damning portrayal of Lively's on-set demeanor, solidifying the dramatic and almost irreversible shift in public and industry perception, effectively marking the beginning of her rapid and precipitous descent from Hollywood darling to, in the eyes of many, an industry pariah, facing a reckoning of her carefully constructed image and the potential erosion of her hard-earned Hollywood empire.
But I was like just tracking him down, and then I finally got to read the script, and the script was a thriller. So that was a little confusing to me because he's like such a funny director.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know, what is this? Because the script is definitely like a twisting, turning, intense thriller. Is it a comedy or a thriller? And he said, yes. So then every day on set, I was like, is today a comedy or is it a thriller?
It's a good mix
and
of
it's
both.
like, yeah, it's like really kind of over the top and campy and trashy and fun and like, you know, kind of like my outfit, I guess.
As the initial shockwaves of the legal earthquake subsided, leaving behind a landscape of shattered reputations and fractured narratives, a more meticulous and forensic examination of the totality of available evidence, including the leaked text messages, the lawyer's damning public statement, and the increasingly numerous and consistent crew accounts, began to reveal a discernible and deeply troubling pattern of potential distortion, manipulation, and outright misrepresentation woven throughout Blake Lively's version of events. The seemingly disparate and isolated incidents, when meticulously analyzed and viewed collectively, pointed towards a disturbingly consistent tendency to systematically exaggerate, subtly reframe, or even potentially fabricate key details of interactions and events to align with her desired narrative, maintain absolute control over the unfolding situation, and ultimately protect and preserve her carefully crafted public image. Regardless of the ethical or professional costs, the seemingly minor discrepancies, when pieced together, formed a compelling and increasingly damning tapestry of potential deception. The trailer incident, initially presented as a gross violation of privacy and a deliberate act of disrespect, crumbled under the scrutiny of the unedited text messages, which allegedly revealed Lively's own invitation and even lighthearted banter, painting a picture of consensual interaction rather than intrusive violation. The accusations of insensitive postpartum comments, initially framed as a deeply personal and offensive attack on her body image, were directly contradicted by leaked messages suggesting Baldoni's genuine concern for her physical well-being and comfort during physically demanding scenes, referencing his own chronic back issues as a point of empathy and shared concern, rather than mockery or body shaming. The controversial incident involving producer Jamie Heath showing Lively a deeply deeply unsettling private clip, initially portrayed as a jarring and invasive act of professional misconduct, was, according to Heath and numerous corroborating accounts, presented with full context, explicit prior consent obtained from Lively, and a clear explanation of its relevance to a specific scene in the film, starkly contrasting with Lively's later portrayal of it as a shocking and unprovoked assault on her sensibilities. These seemingly minor discrepancies, multiplied across a multitude of incidents and interactions, were no longer easily dismissible as isolated misunderstandings or simple misinterpretations of events. Instead, they coalesced into a compelling and increasingly damning pattern, suggesting not a series of unfortunate coincidences, but a potential systematic approach to manipulating information, selectively twisting narratives, and potentially even fabricating accusations to achieve a predetermined outcome, protect a fragile ego, and maintain an iron grip on her carefully constructed public persona. This emerging and deeply unsettling pattern of potential distortion, coupled with the devastatingly credible lawyer's statement, irrevocably undermined Lively's credibility, shifting the central focus of the narrative away from her initial claims of victimhood and towards a far more disturbing and complex inquiry into her underlying motivations, the extent to which her public image diverged from her private actions, and the potential consequences of such a profound and potentially calculated disconnect between perception and reality in the unforgiving glare of the Hollywood spotlight.
The idea that people think that they know you, I think because of how intrusive media is these days, people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work, and if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you.
The immediate and potentially long-lasting ramifications for Blake Lively's once meteoric career are now starkly undeniable, casting a long and ominous shadow of doubt across her once bright horizon. Her previously unblemished brand, once synonymous with effortless glamour and relatable charm, is now irrevocably tarnished, permanently shrouded in a cloud of suspicion, controversy, and deeply damaging allegations of manipulation and misrepresentation. The once effervescent and seemingly indestructible image of the approachable, charming star, the beloved Hollywood icon, has been abruptly and perhaps irretrievably replaced by a far more complex, unsettling, and ultimately negative public perception, one of calculated manipulation, an insatiable thirst for control, and a potential willingness to distort the truth, betray professional trust, and damage reputations to achieve her own self-serving aims and protect her carefully constructed image. While a dedicated and perhaps dwindling core fan base may stubbornly persist in their unwavering belief in her innocence, clinging desperately to the idealized image they have long admired, the dominant industry sentiment has undeniably and drastically shifted towards extreme caution, widespread apprehension, and a palpable sense of professional wariness. Casting directors, showrunners, studio executives, and production companies previously engaged in fierce competition to secure Lively's star power and box office appeal are now likely to approach any future collaborations with extreme circumspection, meticulously weighing the potentially catastrophic risks of negative press, on-set disruptions, legal entanglements, and the now palpable specter of reputational damage inevitably associated with her increasingly controversial name. The fundamental question of Blake Lively's future trajectory within the notoriously fickle and unforgiving landscape of Hollywood remains agonizingly open, fraught with profound uncertainty and hanging precariously in the balance. Can she realistically rehabilitate her now deeply tarnished image? Is a carefully orchestrated public apology, a strategically crafted mea culpa, or a carefully managed media rehabilitation campaign even remotely sufficient to mend the bridges she has seemingly burned so thoroughly and irrevocably? Or has the damage inflicted by this protracted and deeply damaging controversy proven too profound, too fundamental, too deeply ingrained in the public consciousness to ever be truly repaired, leaving her career permanently relegated to the fringes of Hollywood's A-list elite? The protracted legal battles, should they continue to unfold, threaten to drag the already toxic controversy even further into the harsh glare of the public sphere, potentially exacerbating the damage and further solidifying the negative public perception. Hollywood's collective memory, while notoriously short-lived and prone to sudden shifts in public favor, can also be surprisingly unforgiving, particularly when confronted with compelling and credible evidence of perceived dishonesty, calculated manipulation, and a profound betrayal of professional trust. The lingering, unanswered question questions surrounding Lively's true motivations. Was it truly solely about creative control and artistic vision, or was there a deeper, more complex, and potentially more troubling psychology at play? Was it a colossal miscalculation, a catastrophic misjudgment of the potential consequences of her actions? Or was it perhaps something far more deeply rooted in an insatiable desire for power, an obsessive need for control, and an unwavering commitment to maintaining her carefully constructed image at any cost, regardless of the collateral damage? Continue to fuel endless speculation, industry gossip, and public debate, leaving her future in Hollywood and her carefully constructed Hollywood illusion hanging precariously in a state of profound and unsettling limbo, a stark and cautionary tale for a town built on dreams, illusions, and the ever-fragile currency of fame. In the dazzling, often deceptive, and hyper-image conscious world of Hollywood, where perception is frequently prioritized over reality and illusion is often more valued than authenticity, the Blake Lively saga serves as a stark, chilling, and profoundly cautionary morality tale of epic proportions. It stands as a brutal and unflinching reminder that in the digital age of relentless scrutiny, instant information dissemination, and readily accessible digital records, even the most meticulously crafted public persona, the most carefully constructed illusion of celebrity perfection, is ultimately and intrinsically fragile, vulnerable to the corrosive power of truth and the inevitable consequences of actions taken in the shadows. The critical, defining turning point, the cataclysmic moment that irrevocably shattered the illusion and triggered the devastating cascade of negative repercussions, was undeniably the unprecedented and deeply damaging public statement issued by her own long-term attorney. That single ethically charged act, that deeply personal and professionally seismic legal betrayal, exposed a gaping chasm, a seemingly irreconcilable divide between the carefully curated and relentlessly promoted image of Blake Lively, America's sweetheart, Hollywood's golden girl, and the far more complex, nuanced, and potentially darker reality that lay hidden beneath the surface, a reality now thrust into the harsh and unforgiving glare of the public spotlight. It is a stark and unsettling cautionary narrative about the seductive allure of fame, the inherent dangers of unchecked ambition, and a relentless pursuit of control, and the ultimate unavoidable fragility of even the most meticulously crafted public persona in an era defined by relentless scrutiny, instant accountability, and the ever-present threat of exposure. The protracted and deeply damaging story of Blake Lively's dramatic downfall, her precipitous descent from Hollywood grace, is not merely another sensational celebrity scandal destined to fade from public memory. It is a profound and unsettling reflection of our own image-obsessed culture, a chilling and timely reminder that in the end, even in the glittering, illusory world of Hollywood, reality, however inconvenient, however ruthlessly suppressed, has an undeniable and ultimately unavoidable way of breaking through the most carefully constructed facade, leaving behind a trail of shattered illusions, damaged reputations, and the lingering, haunting question in a world saturated with carefully curated images and meticulously managed narratives: how much of what we see, how much of what we believe is ever truly authentically real? And what is the ultimate devastating price of mistaking the shimmering illusion for the unvarnished and often uncomfortable truth?